It's shorter than you think. No think. Longing is the music of our sphere. The gift of life is never more or less. It starts at any time you like and ends in just a wink. Pass me the light, baby.
Marie, whakalofalahi atu. Welcome to the Daily Examiner. My name is Elliot Ikile. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all onto our program. Of course, tonight we are talking with Matt King, formerly of the National Party, and to help me along the way, because he is quite a tough character, is my wonderful co-host. That would be Mel Taylor. Mel, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Excellent. So, how are we doing today? Are you ready for a bit of a chat with the powerful Northlander, Matt King?
I must say, it's awesome to have two Northlanders on here. This is going to be great.
Oh, awesome. All right. So, yes, of course, Mel Taylor is, of course, from Northland, as well as Matt. Now, just to let you guys know, the way in which we operate here is that we want some interaction. All right, so we don't want to just be asking the questions. You are also able to ask questions as well. If you pop it up in the channel, we will see those comments, and if we can, we will incorporate them into our speak, so you can ask Matt something that you want to know. Also, we are having more interviews coming up, and I believe that next Monday we'll also be speaking with one of the great New Zealanders, Russell Coates. So look out for that interview as well. We'll bring that up when it comes up. In the meantime, without further ado, let me welcome onto our platform the one, the only, Matt King. Matt, kia ora.
Kia ora, Elliot and Mel. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you.
Oi. Yeah, great to see you. Wow, look, massive things have been going on, and of course, many of the people here already are talking about you in the comment section. We can see it already. Can you please let us know, before we go back a little bit, what's happened about 3-4 hours ago? There was a big announcement made. Can you tell us what that announcement was?
Hey, well, Elliot, thanks very much for that. You give me a big welcome, it's way too much for me, I really appreciate it, though. I really do. You made me out to be a lot better than what I am. What was 4 hours ago, approximately 4 hours ago, we released news that I was I'm in conversations, I'm in serious conversations with some really good people about forming a new political party. So that's essentially it. We didn't give too much away. We just put it out there to people that, hey, look, there's going to be another option on the table whenever the next election will be. And I hope that we will be able to provide an option for a great number of New Zealanders that are politically homeless at the moment.
Oh, awesome. Wonderful.
So when are you sort of expecting to get the ball rolling, I guess, get the name out, the brand out, and let the people know what it's all about?
Well, I could say to you that we have had to fast forward what we had planned, and I've got some really good people that have come on board. A lot of them, a portion of them will remain behind the scenes for a number of reasons, but nothing sinister. They're just people that are supportive, both financially and with experience, political experience, and knowledge and know-how. And they just have asked me if they could remain in the background in the early stages. But they will be known to everyone when it counts, which is when closer to the election. So it's hugely exciting for me. It's been something I've been thinking about for a while, and going back, at least a year, really. It's been for me. I've been thinking about it. But look, it's huge. It's huge for me. And I look at what's happening now in New Zealand, and I have never been so concerned about what I've seen happening around this beautiful country of ours.
Yeah. Look, Matt, you're right. You have been going. Your concerns you have articulated for a long time, and it's very interesting because a lot of the politicians out there, they've actually just shut up, even though we know that some of them actually disagree with a lot of things that have been going on. Tell me, where did you start? When and why did you start to question the perhaps growing authoritarianism, the mandates? When did you start being concerned, and was there actually a reason as to why you were so concerned about it?
Well, I mean, when I was an MP, there was a lot of things about this government that concerned me, a lot of things. But I could say that those have been absolutely monstered by the COVID stuff. And what it concerned me is the way they have brought in legislation without consultation, without due process, without all the normal checks and balances that you would imagine would have to be there, which have taken away our basic human rights. And to watch it unfold in front of you and then see the consequences of it has been probably the most confrontational, sort of worrying time in my life. And I look back now, and I saw what was happening, and I remember the first few lines that Jacinda Ardern said about 80,000 deaths, and that put the fear of God into all of us, didn't it? And we reacted the way we did, and we went into you don't know what you're dealing with, so you treat everything as if it's worst case scenario. But we now realise that within 2 weeks of that 80,000 figure, we know now that was totally out, so wrong, and that modelling was proven to be totally wrong, and it wasn't the scenario that we believed it to be. And yep, I agree. We all locked down and we all thought that we were doing the right thing. And I don't disagree with that course of action then, because it's better to be, politicians are always risk averse and it's always better to be on the safe side. But since then, I've seen, to me, it seems like we're ignoring lessons learned overseas. Big lessons learned overseas. We're ignoring them. And I always say, look, this movie has already been played overseas. We already know what's going to happen, and we're not learning from those scenes and that movie, and we're seeming to make the same basic errors that they do and that they have in other countries. We haven't learned from it. So yeah. I mean, I've watched you guys talk about some of, and I know you're well aware of what's going on as well. So, it's we're not alone. And I'm watching an awareness, an awakening going on around the country, and for me, it's heartening to see.
Yeah,
No, wonderful.
I think there's been a few comments on prior posts, and I think that there's a few people out there that have the perception that you just turned up at the protest and you're just starting this journey. Now, we put out an article before. You've been involved for quite some time speaking out against the mandates, and you've been working with the police and the Defence Force. Can you explain to everyone what's been going on there and how you've been a part of all that?
Okay, well, I'll talk about the Defence Force and police in a second, but what I'll say is that I have been coming out and questioning and challenging and debating the COVID narrative from a long time ago, from last year, and I have run, and I can see. I'll tell you the time that things started going a bit astray for me was when I interviewed Simon Thornley, an epidemiologist from Auckland University, and we had basically a chat, and you can follow what he says in the Facebook Live that I did, and he basically refers to information that you can source yourself, and he might have said one or two things that might be up for debate, but a lot of what he said was actual just factual information. Well, the media, I got quite a high number of views, and the media took hold of it, and then all they did was discredit him. They brought up some articles and some mistakes that he had made, some errors, and they basically just smeared his name and mine. And one of them was from Rod Jackson, who just basically got on the mainstream media and ran him down. So what we did was we challenged him. We emailed him and contacted him and said, come on a Facebook Live with us and Simon Thornley and Rod Jackson, and you can have a debate, and I will ensure that it's a very fair debate, so everyone will have an opportunity to talk. And he refused. He refused outright. And I thought, well, you went on mainstream media and you discredited him with false statements, and then you won't debate them in a Facebook Live where we can actually, people can come in like now and ask questions and all that. So I knew the narrative was wrong, and that was way back and before. I think it might have been August last year, but I was challenging things well before that. But anyway, in terms of the police and the army, what we did was I was contacted by a group of police that are proposing the mandates, and took a judicial review to the High Court in Wellington, and Defence Force personnel joined them, and I'm just one of the spokesmen for it, and it was heard in the High Court I think this week, and it's been reserved decision, and we'll find out hopefully within the next 3 weeks what the outcome of that was. But if we win that, it could be a precedent-setting ruling. Yeah.
Awesome. We've actually got a lot of questions that are already popping up in the channel, guys. Thank you so much for that. That's really awesome. This is the first one, and I thought this is actually a good one to start with in terms of our people out there who want to ask the questions. Christina's asked, why did you step down from the National Party? I think it's a very valid question. So, why?
Yeah, it is. It's a good question. So basically, what happened was, when I started challenging the narrative around COVID and around mandates, this was not what the National Party leadership team and the strategy that they followed. So I started veering away from where they're at, and that's not conducive to staying, popular with the National Party members. They're not happy about that. So I started doing that, and because I felt it was the right thing to do. I mean, my core values are, and the values of the National Party are individual freedom and choice and personal responsibility. Those are core values. And I'm exercising them because they are my core values. But I felt the National Party were going down a path. They support mandates, and they support the vaccination of kids. And I want to see the science to support that, because the science that I've seen don't support that. So I challenged it. It was at odds with the National Party leadership, and I felt that I could not stand up as a National Party candidate or if I was elected an MP and hold that line, because it doesn't agree with my values. So ultimately I made the decision to resign, and I'm comfortable with it. It was a big call, but I'm very comfortable with the person I see looking back at me in the mirror when I look in the mirror. So.
Oh, geez, I love that. That's actually quite powerful, actually, being able to look at yourself, the integrity factor. I give you props. I think that was incredibly brave. It would have been easy just to go with, hey, there's a red team and a blue team. I want to be on the blue team because, there's a chance that I can get some money from the taxpayer. So I think incredibly brave. Now, I'm wondering if I should... There's a whole bunch of questions here. I am curious about some of this stuff as well. There's some fun questions that I want to ask, but there is a couple here I want to ask. Okay, I'm sure this is an accidental misspelling. There's possibly a misspelling of Miss Ardern's name. Where do you sit on Jabcinda's secret He Pua project? So these are some things that have been coming up in terms of your politics.
Okay, very, very easy on that. I am a guy that believes that we're all Kiwis, and I don't see how we can have a separate structure for different races. It just is fundamentally wrong for me. So we're all Kiwis, we're all in it together. We all have one level of governance and one structure, and we just get on with it. That's fundamental. So the Pua project was basically kept hidden from us all. They didn't campaign on it. No one knew anything about it. And then they jump it on us when we after they've been elected. And so that I'm fundamentally opposed to that. And I'm fundamentally opposed to even doing that, because it's something that's so big. They should have told Kiwis what they were doing and what they were planning, and then let the voting public decide. And so that's a classic case of I'm not comfortable with that at all.
So you're talking about transparency. Sorry. You're talking about transparency with the government.
Yeah, well, there is none. There is none. That's the word, that's not in their dictionary. Transparency is not in the dictionary.
and you know what? That is actually something which is being traced throughout our comment section. There is a question here. I'm going to use just one of these that has come up here. Now, this is actually a really tough question. We all know how Miss Ardern answered it. She said basically, I believe it is possible, and she was going to be most honest, pillar of truth, or the one source of truth, all of that 9 yards. We know that that's an absolute fabrication in itself. Donna Moyle, she has asked, are you going to work for and with the people, or will you say what we want you to hear and then go back on your word? And I know that that's actually this is a tough one to answer. So what do you think? How was that something that you would respond to?
Look, the way I want to be in politics is the way I conduct myself outside of politics, and that is to be straight. And what you see is what you get with me. And I have stood up in halls when I've been campaigning, and I remember campaigning against Winston Peters and others, and the crowd were wanting blood. They were very angry about certain matters. And they basically wanted, they would ask a question, and if you told them the truth, you were going to get booed. And I think one of them was to do with the Mangawhai rates, sewerage debacle, where there was a massive debt incurred. And the Mangawhai people and the Kaipara people are going to be paying a debt for a long time. And they wanted basically to know what each candidate was prepared to do. And of course, Winston Peters said, "Oh well, I'll make sure that debt's squared away, and we'll take care of it, and it's $30 million or something." And I just knew that to be a lie. There's no way he was going to, and he never did. And I just said, look, that horse is bolted. I'm sorry, but we are stuck with the debt, and we don't want to set a precedent by having central government paying that debt, because there are councils all around the country that may have similar situations, and we just can't afford to bail them out. And of course, I naturally got booed a bit. It was a very unpopular answer, but it was the truth. And I stood there and I said it because it was the truth, and it wasn't popular, and it probably didn't help me at all, but I'm happy with that decision, and that's the way I want to operate, and that's the way I think that I can operate.
Well said. And I think that's actually a great testimony. That's a really good evidence piece of that, because that is measurable. We do know that you have said some things before. You said, oh, look, I'm sorry, but this is actually how it is, and it sucks, and it got you booed, but you were able to stand up there and say that. And now that's good. That is a piece of evidence that can be utilized to go towards your transparency and your integrity to what you're saying. So I think that's well, I think it's bloody awesome.
It's in the Mangawhai Golf Club. It was in the Mangawhai Golf Club, and it was a packed crowd. And I don't know if you were there, Mel, but I do remember it was a packed crowd, and they will remember it. So there's evidence there. There's witnesses.
Hey! There we go. All right, this has also come up now as well. Craig, now this is actually a really good one. At the last election, my preference was to vote for NCP. The media worked so hard to discredit them, had to vote for National. What fears do you have that good values will be discredited by media?
That's probably my biggest concern, is that based on the mainstream media's behaviour over the last year or two, specifically since COVID has been going, that smaller parties will not get a fair hearing. That's my biggest concern, because all they have to do is blind you out, block you out. And to a certain degree, that did happen when I was campaigning. I can remember when Winston Peters, the TV1 cameras came in, and they put a microphone on him in the hallway, and they filmed him coming in and grand entrance. And in the shot, he walked past me, and as he approached me, they cut away to a different scene, and then cut back to it when they'd passed me, and I was out of shot again. And I watched it on the news, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. But we're stuck with it. We can't do anything about it. We can obviously have outlets like the Daily Examiner giving the real truth, and plug you, giving it warts and all real truth. That's how we can get our message out, and on social media, and but the mainstream media, there's other forces at play there. Yeah.
There's been quite a lot of people going down to the protest. I was there over the last weekend. And just from your point of view, you've heard what all the media have been saying, the mainstream media. How much of what they have been saying can you debunk by being there?
Look, I don't have all night. I'm sorry, I don't have all night. but I will tell you that I went down there looking for these white supremacists, and there are no white supremacists. And I went looking down for these Maori separatists, and there are no Maori separatists. I saw a lot of grannies, and I saw a lot of happy, smiling people. I saw a lot of people. I got to tell you, there was a couple there because I got up and spoke, and later on in the afternoon, close to the evening, they came up to me and they gave me a hug, and they were crying. They were crying because they're looking for someone that can speak for them and fight back on what's been happening, the obscenity that's been happening to do with the mandates. And I just felt such a good feeling of unity and sisterhood and brotherhood down there. I felt like putting flowers in my hair and putting on one of those coloured shirts and dancing around, because not that was who was there, because they weren't. There was everyone there. But what I can say is that the mainstream media are lying to us. They're lying to the people. It's lies, and we can prove their lies. And I've been down there. I've been in the tents. I've been in I've been ground zero for 2.5 days. And I watched the news on that night, and I go, just 3/4 of what they just presented were lies. And then I heard media and politicians also lying, blatant lies, portraying them and demonizing them and stigmatizing them, so that it's easy for the general public to write them off as an unemployed mob, when in actual fact they were true blue New Zealanders. Oh, you could not get more New Zealand true blue Kiwis than I. One guy sitting there in his tent with his letterbox out the front, and with his wife, middle-aged guy. He tells me that he's a digger operator and he lives north of Wellington, and he's set up camp like he's sitting in a campground, by the beach, and he's front line. He's right there, right where the wall is, and turns out he actually employs 250 people. He got a business that employs 250 people. He tells me he's a digger operator. Yeah, right. Anyway, he's there because he's so concerned about the breach of our human rights, the mandates, the eroding of our freedoms, the people stuck overseas that can't come home. I mean, thousands and thousands of Kiwis stuck overseas that can't come home. I just can't understand why we're even having that. It's just unbelievable. It's outrageous. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of my more favourite parts as well in terms of so far, in terms of the freedom rally going on over there, is when Mr. Mallard, he put on the sprinklers in that puerile attempt to, again, to discomfort the guys there. And instead of that, what happened, a couple of civil contractors who were there in the mix itself set up a couple of drains, fluvial dispositioned the water down and got it squirting out. I thought, nah.
That was
and then what?
That was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing.
Oh, absolutely. And then when he turned off the sprinklers, what happened? They just went right back, replaced the ground back together, and filled the trench back in. Oh, it was just. That was off the hook. Yeah,
it was magic, and I thought, good on those Kiwi lads to do that. I mean, that was obscene by Trevor Mallard, and I've said this and I'll say it again. That man has no mana. He has no mana. He's arrogant.
Yes.
I always say, how the hell did a guy like him get in the position he's in? He does not deserve the role that he is. And I won't attack the guy. I'll attack his behaviour. His behaviour was atrocious. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I find his behaviour to be quite disgusting. I find him quite puerile, pretty much a child. And ever since he get in, he's had this real bullying attitude. He really has covered for various Labour MPs while having this snarky attempt. It's just absolutely disgraceful. Before we get into more serious stuff as well, I thought this was just awesome. This little comment here. Karina, in Matt's words, the next virus strain will be another con. So
I said that.
Thank you for that Greek alphabet.
I didn't realise someone was recording when I said that.
that was awesome.
The next one after that, that's really going to hit us is Optimus Prime. He's going to really get us.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I love it. I do have one question that was passed, and it was passed. This was actually given a lot of weight. There's a lot of weight behind this question. Yeah. I actually have it off to the side here, and that is, what are your views on the firearms laws as they are now? Would you support the repeal of all the changes introduced since 2019?
Yes, I would.
Now, and of course, there's a big one. Sorry,
I would. What I would do is I would. We have to revisit that, because it was just a knee-jerk reaction, and it was bad law. It was done badly. It ignored Nicole McKee. She probably got into ACT because of how bad it was. The ACT, she got in because she was on the side of she was, obviously knew all about the gun laws and tried to her best to get them to shape the law properly, and they didn't. And on the back of that, she got in. Look, there was one of the very simple things they could have done is made those firearms that they've banned Category E specialist, the Category E license holders. So you have to have more security, you have to have more background checks, and there's a whole lot fewer of them. I think there's 5,000 of them in New Zealand as opposed to however many, 180,000 normal firearms. But that's just one simple suggestion that was made to me, so that those guns are protected. But look, I thought a lot of decisions were made with that law were made by people that were ignorant firearms, ignorant of, never handled a gun. I know there were MPs in my party, National Party, the other party, the blue team, that were actually never picked up a gun in their life, and they were spouting forth about firearm laws. And I just thought, wow, you're in a rural New Zealand. We've all got firearms. None of us are nut jobs. We're all regular people. And so I would revisit it. That would be a definite, and rewrite the law properly, with using proper process, and just try and right the wrongs. Actually, right the wrongs.
Yep. No, well said.
I have a Northland question.
Beautiful.
Oh, the beautiful Northland.
Absolutely.
Yes,
How do you see the state of the Northland economy with the forthcoming closure of Marston Point Refinery and the massive job losses?
Look, I know that was a commercial decision, but it does worry me because it's a strategic asset, and we are very vulnerable now because we don't have any processing refinery. So I don't know the answer to that, of whether it would have to have been nationalised and taken over, or whether we subsidise, or whether I don't know. But it does seem like an unwise decision to have us at the beck and call of Australian refineries and Singaporean refineries, because we've only got a small amount of reserve fuel. If the tankers stop coming, we've got only a small amount of reserve. So, and also it's a massive blow for the northern economy. That's it's not just the refinery, but there's a flow-on effect of all the service industry connected with it. So, whether we class it as a strategic asset, and we do what we have to do to keep it going. I know they spent millions and millions of dollars upgrading it, and not that long ago. So to be mothballing it seems very odd. Yeah.
Matt, I'm going to push you a little bit, because I know that you have not. I know that you haven't built your constitution, the policies, and you've got to set up a lot of those. I want to get your points, especially in terms of the police aspect. I live in South Auckland. South Auckland has had something like nearly 15 years high in terms of firearm crime. We know that, of course, the laws that Labour put in have done nothing to assist in that, and we know that there is a bit of a drug war going on in South Auckland that many other politicians, especially the Labour ones, don't want to talk about. Do you have any sort of ideas around reduction of crime, and especially reduction of the gang crime that's coming out because of that, whether it's the 501s, the proliferation of drugs, or whatever? Do you have any ideas around how you might help that situation?
Well, I think that because my son's a cop now, and he rolls around. He's done extra firearms training. He's in the Armed Defenders Squad, and he's only 21 years old.
Nice, AOS, good one.
Hugely proud of him. I do believe that you've got to make it easy for the police to be able to seize firearms off gang members. So the arms prohibition bill proposed by National, where basically if you're a gang member, the police can actually roll into addresses where known gang members or vehicles that they're in, and search them over and above the powers you'd have of a regular citizen. And I think that you've got to make it easy for the police to police. And so most gang members that I'm aware of are the worst kinds of crooks there ever were. They peddle misery, and they try, and I see them quite often on bike runs, trying to charity runs, and trying to improve the PR. But they are the most prolific criminals in New Zealand are gang members. So giving cops the authority, the ability to search without warrant, seize weapons, and seize and search and seizure made easy is a good start. Also, pouring resources into the organised crime units around the country. So I know that there are a lot of things happening, and there's never enough money, and so for the police, so they only have limited money to run electronic operations and wire, phone tapping and that sort of thing, and specialist trained detectives that are targeting the crooks. But we all know who they are. So that's one of the areas that I would be interested in. Obviously, policing is dear to my heart. My grandfather was a copper. I was one, skipped my dad's generation, and now my son's one. So, and the level of violence that my son is experiencing in his job compared with what I did and compared with my grandfather had is gone up, massively. So, but crime is it's a product of education and poor housing and poor living conditions and poor parenting, and so it runs very deep. It runs very deep. So it have to be a multiple pronged attack, and I'm very interested in pursuing what Bill English actually was going to do when he got in, and that was it was called social investment, but we have to rename it something else. But I truly believe that targeting our at-risk kids at a young age and pouring resource in them will have a flow-on effect, a decade later, with less prison expense and less time. So it's a no-brainer when you look at the data. It really is a no-brainer, and we need to sell it to the public. Social investment doesn't sound right. We need to get some spin doctors into finding out so we can sell it to the public. This is what we've got to do.
Okay, so you wouldn't be keen on giving millions and millions of taxpayer-funded money to the gangs for programs?
Well, it's interesting. No, I wouldn't. Of course not. That's an easy question to answer. But I'll give you an example. There was a young guy in our town. His dad was an alcoholic and his mum's left, and so I didn't know any of this, but he used to actually his father had a ute, just a beat up old ute. He used to drive to the pub in it and had a dog kennel in the back, and he used to lock his boy in it. And I didn't know that. And so a 6, 7, 8-year-old boy, he would be locked in the dog kennel in the back while his dad was in the pub. And of course, when you have that sort of treatment, your life's going to be hell. And of course, he turned into a petty thief, and then he graduated to burglaries and car thefts. And I used to chase him around my local town, and he was like a gazelle. He could run, you'd see him, and then he'd be gone. Never catch him, but we'd have to catch him later. And then from that, I think he did an armed robbery. He got a serious prison time for that. And the last I heard was that he did a kidnapping and a rape. And so he's basically institutionalized prison. That's him. And when I look back and I think, when he was 6, 7, and 8, 5, 6, 7, and 8, if we could have taken him out of that horrible environment and put him in a loving family, it's costing us $100,000 a year to keep him now. We could have spent a fraction of that then and saved a whole lot of pain and suffering and a lot of expense now. So that's the sort of example I'm telling you about.
Hey, the also in terms of the police, now we know that last week, and we've got a couple of reports that are coming out just about some incidents that occurred last week. The police engaged in I would say very much over heavy tactics. It got quite violent. There were injuries and harm. We also know that we've heard that some police even resigned after that. Are you able to help us understand the hearts, perhaps the minds of the police at that point in time? We know that now they've been, I assume, operationally advised to back off, calm down, and to treat the situation better. That period of time is going to be one that's going to be spreading for years. That footage is going to be going for years. Can you take us through, obviously you don't know, but your thoughts, your feelings about that little period of time during the early days?
Okay, so I'm not privy to any of the police officers involved in that situation or the command, but I can tell you this. I believe that no police, experienced police and supervisor, the guy in charge, in command and control, would have ordered the police to do that. They didn't have the numbers. There was a lot of determined, passionate people there. They were passive. To me, that was a political decision and pressure put on the police. They won't ever admit that, but I can guarantee Trevor Mallard and the government put pressure on the police to take action, thinking that they could roll over them and take them out. It was a disaster, and it was always going to be a disaster. And the footage that we saw, I saw that woman. I know she took her own clothes off except for her underwear, but watching her get dragged through by her hair and thumped on the ground, and then restrained, and then a guy come in and lean on her, and the two female cops cuffed her and took her away. That was just horrific. It was horrific. She was a skinny little, lean little, lightweight, girl, no threat to anyone. And then I saw the young guy, the 15-year-old boy, with the full weight of the other cop's hands on his full body weight on his head, and while he was restrained. You can't get past that sort of level. And look, I know what it's like. I've been in those situations. Adrenaline's pumping. You cannot, if someone doesn't want to go, you have to use force. It's never pretty, but that was extra disturbing. And I thought, for what? Because those protesters were not surging on police. They were not throwing things. They were not assaulting them. It was the police that preempted that. So what that did was, and I can tell you this for a fact because I went around, I watched it on the live feeds from the beautiful citizen journalists around the place. I watched it from several angles, and I came down after that, and I spoke to people that were down there, and I spoke to a lot of people that were actually real regular Kiwis. I spoke to some southern boys that were there. They struck in my mind because there was 5 of them. They were big boys. They were all my height. None of them had been in trouble with the police. All of them ran businesses. All of them worked, had wives, all that sort of thing. And they said they saw that footage on TV and they jumped on a plane and came up because they said they weren't going to stand by and let that happen. And they were ready to put their bodies on the line and get arrested. And there's no way that they would have been. They would have taken 3 or 4 cops per guy to deal with that. I just think that it was a decision, a political decision. I don't believe that a commander would have ordered that, and I'd be really sad if they do again, because it'll be a recruiting program for the protesters. Because I know people that are sitting in their homes all around the country, watching this protest live, and seeing a lot of good, solid, lovely people, peaceful protesters everywhere. And if the police come in and try and roll over them, they're going to need numbers to do it. And I've no doubt that they will have those numbers. I know they're flying in from all over the country now. There's cops leaving Northland now. We can't afford to lose these cops. We're thin on the ground as it is up here, and they are flying them to Wellington. There will just be a surge of people rolling in Wellington, good Kiwis, rolling in all over the place saying enough is enough, we're not going to put up with it. So I am hoping that the police do not try and preempt this with force.
So you're saying that, so of course that's quite dangerous. If they're starting to direct police from different centres around New Zealand going straight to Wellington, that of course means that you've got less cops to protect the community, less to investigate violence, sexual abuse, rapes, murders going on in other parts of the country, and now they're all being sent to Wellington. So there's a bit of a double whammy there that I wouldn't mind your comment on. One, obviously you've mentioned that it means that you're already thin on the ground. The police being directed out and into Wellington leaves it even more thin on the ground, and which means great time for the organised crime, the organised gangs to actually start moving their product chop in a hurry while that's going on. As for going into Wellington, is there a reason around that? Is this part of the major operations centre? Is there something that they are trying to now look at actually possibly forcing the police to go and do what they did last week?
Look, I'm only speculating here, and I have no inside knowledge. But they're bringing in the reinforcements. They'll have them concealed around the place, but within close proximity. And at some point in time, they might try and move the protesters on. And the first thing they want to do is get rid of all those vehicles around the street, because if they get rid of all those vehicles, and quite frankly, the street outside the Backbenchers Bar, which is directly outside, that's the food hall. That's the food hall and the toilets, quite separated apart, thankfully. But that's where they're producing thousands of meals, and all donated, all free. And there are some fantastic people in there, and it could be an A&P show. You could walk in there and it's like an A&P show. The people standing getting the food and the people cooking are my mum and dad, the guy down the road. They're just regular people. And if the police will want to get rid of all that first, because if they get rid of those vehicles and all that infrastructure there, then it's a lot easier to clear the grounds. So I'm not going to speak on record saying don't move the vehicles or anything like that. And I think the bus terminal it would be really good if they could move vehicles from the bus terminal and let the buses go again. That would be a good move. But I've walked all around there, and that's the other thing, Elliot and Mel. All around the back of the Parliament is where all the service entrants are and where all the people can come and go. There are no protesters there. The whole back is open. There's hardly any cops. It's not like they're surrounding the Parliament. They're actually cordoned off out the front in the music festival area with the stages, and they're staying behind the barriers, which are they're only half a meter high. You can leap a meter high. You can leap over them. They're staying there, and they've set up camp there, and they've set up a little city, and it's organised, and they've got everything there. But there's not people going around the back and trying to get in the back, and so the cops are coming and going. The politicians can come and go. People can come and go freely. I've been around there a few times to have a look, and there's no one there. If you were really seriously wanting to be, you'd surround the whole place, and they're not. They're just trying to make a point, and I can't think of anything more important to fight for than the ability to decide what goes into your body. I cannot think of anything more important. So this fight we're in now, I'm all in. I'm all for it, and we got to win. We got to win. Non-violent, peaceful, music festival atmosphere, win. But we got to win it. And I had an idea for you. I wonder what you think of my new policy. The day that we win the mandates, preferably be a Friday or a Saturday, that we actually win. We make it a public holiday, and we have a dance party on the Parliament grounds. No alcohol, no tents. A dance party every year on that date. Good policy?
Oh, that's an awesome policy. Oh, yes. That is off the hook.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And I think you've cottoned on to something really powerful, which is, of course, is that this time period is going to be one of those time periods that is studied in the future. That future students in the social studies, social sciences, history, they're going to look back and they're going to look at the population that is now and going to wonder why did these guys do this when these guys were strongly saying this? And I totally agree. I think this is one of those moments in history that we can actually help defend what New Zealand is. I love it.
I so believe you're right. I think that we will. This is one of those points in history, in New Zealand history, where we will remember and take to our graves. And I'm proud to be part of it and involved in it and supporting it. I've never been prouder.
Awesome.
Have you been affected by the mandates personally?
My whole family have been affected by it.
Really sorry to hear that. Yeah, and that's what I noticed. We're walking around Parliament grounds where people talk about this amazing vibe. There's just so much love, and it's just so awesome. It's also an emotional roller coaster because some of those stories that people come up and tell you are just like,
Well, I'm been recording them. I've been recording them, and people have lost their jobs. They've lost their houses. I know, for example, my neighbour, she's in a horse truck. She's a teacher. She lost her job and she relocated, and she lives in the turning circle of my father's there's an old cow shed on the farm, and it's got power and water, and she's pulled up in a horse truck and plugged into the water and the power, and she lives in that, and she's trying to get by, and she's a woman in her 40s, lovely lady, very smart lady. And she's just made the decision that she doesn't want to get vaccinated. And I respect that decision. And so she's been mandated out of her job. And it's unforgivable. I will never forgive this government for what they've done. I will never forgive them for it. I certainly won't forget it. And I just believe that this is our basic human right. And there is nothing, I think, more important than body autonomy and the right to decide what goes into your body. And I will fight for that to the end. I will fight for that. And I know that we are on the right side of this. We are on the right side of this. I'll stand, and that's one of the reasons why I left the National Party, because I know we are right and I know they are wrong. And history will show that they were wrong. Those politicians in that house that supporting these mandates, and all of them have, and they might flip-flop now, but all of them have, it's a fundamental right that I will continue to fight for as long as I can. So while I have breath, I will fight it. Yeah.
Hoorah. Yeah, no, I love hearing that. Hey, look, Josh has brought up a question. He's asking your thoughts on alternative treatments for COVID-19, ivermectin and some of the other ones, especially the ones that are being given to people, I suppose, overseas that New Zealand is not giving out. What are your thoughts in terms of some of those?
Okay, so I've been talking to a lot of health professionals off the record and behind the scenes, because that's how you get the truth. And they've told me that there are heaps of different treatment protocols for COVID-19 that are actually suppressed in this country. And they say, if you come out and you mention that word, the ivermectin and the other drugs that are off label, they're cheap, they're off patent, they're basically, there's no money in them to be made by using them, but they're effective. They've worked effectively overseas. And you find out here you can't get them, or you can't use them, or they're not approved, or various reasons. That was really what got me asking, why is that the case? Why are we not looking at everything, trying everything, and we're not? And the health professionals I spoke to told me about studies about, say for example, India, Uttar Pradesh, where there's a lot of people with a lot of poor people, and I have a friend that went back to India. And he told me that they were COVID was everywhere over there, and the government started issuing that particular drug and another protocol treatment, and it was worth cents in the dollar. I think it was $2 or $3 a person. So they were being given these packs to be distributed to everyone basically. And if anyone got tested for COVID and they were positive, they could just be administered this drug in 3 days, and they were recovered. So he said that his own father, his 84-year-old father, got it, and so did his mother, and so did one or two of his family members, so did his neighbour, so did the guy down the road, and half the village and half the town. And he said to me, they all just go to the regular doctor, prescribe these pharmaceutical treatments that were properly made in India, and 3 days later everyone's cured. No one goes to hospital; they're all cured. And he came back to New Zealand, and he got double vaccinated to go over there, and he's sitting at MIQ here. 2 weeks, or how many 2 weeks he was in there. He tested twice, double jabbed, and he was a prisoner. And he was a prisoner because they wouldn't even hardly let him out. And he said to me that he said, "What's the madness? Why are we doing this when back home they're treating it and they're recovering and they're getting massively good results? And here we're in basically a motel prison and he doesn't have it because he's been tested twice." And he said, something's wrong. And he said, I turn on the news and I see wall-to-wall COVID fear. And he just said, what's going on? I've been to my home country, and this is what's happening, and it's working. And over here, they won't even consider it. So those are all the things. And a mainstream media would watch this interview of you and I and say we were anti-vaccine, conspiracy theorists, nut jobs that are spreading misinformation. But we're not. We're just doing critical thinking and debating and trying to source non-government information to try and get to the truth.
Yep, well said.
Yeah.
I have to say I'm disgusted, absolutely disgusted at the broken fourth estate that we now have in New Zealand. We always knew that they leaned to the left. We always knew that they would take certain things out of context and omit certain things. But this, I think the last, I suppose, 2 years, but especially the last 5-6 months, has shown us is an absolute deception, a narrative of deception and disinformation from the New Zealand mainstream media. And I would even include, for example, ZB. I would even include ZB in that. They used to be a lot more stronger in terms of having factual information. I'm absolutely disgusted at them. They have not just dropped the ball, they've broken their own industry. They have failed the people that they claim to inform. And I
And,
think, you know, was like yourself, are strong in there.
Yeah,
and they're playing,
yeah, sorry.
sorry, go for it. Oh, they're playing the victim. I mean, I did hear, I guess if you want to call it abuse, I did hear someone yell abuse at the media, and what they said was tell the truth.
Yeah,
You know,
and I can tell you this. I can tell you this. So you watch the mainstream media, and I was at the protests, and then I saw the mainstream media, and I know what I saw, and I know what was going on there. So it's with my own eyes, and I have been a policeman for 14 years, and I have given evidence under oath, and I'm pretty thorough at what I do. And then I watched the news, and I thought that is a complete and utter lie. A whole lot of that. I know it to be false because I was there. And yet it happens every day on the news. Every day there's another story for some reporter reporting something. And I've lost absolute faith in them. I've absolutely lost the faith that because if you lie about that, what else are you lying about? You know, what else are you lying about? And you know, like it is, if someone lies to you, that you might let them off one time and say, I'll let you go this time, but don't do it again. But when they're constantly lying to you, you have no faith in them. I have no faith. Hence the reason why I came down to Wellington. I was trying to find all these neo-Nazis, and all these troubled people. I was looking through all those tents, and what the most common thing that happened to me when I walked in there was people touching my shoulder and thanking me. That was the most common thing that happened. Lots of kisses, hugs, handshakes, smiles, offers of help, good music, a lot of dancing, and a lot of people that are all united for the same reason. We're here to stop the mandates. And that's another thing. You see the news saying, the mixed messages, they're all a whole bunch of... What part of get rid of the mandates and the signs all over the place and everyone you talk to, what part of that do they not understand? And also I found out that the mainstream media, when they're talking about protests, they don't know how to count. They seem to not know how to count.
so yeah.
yeah, that's so true. We need to send them an abacus. Let's send them an abacus or something. Maybe that'll help.
Did you not do math in school? You do not know how to count.
Hey, it was woke math. So,
Yeah. Totally.
Hey, look, Matt, we're coming to the end of it. I want to know now, look, one thing is that when this is over,
yes,
I think I suggest or I recommend that you have a look back, because these comments are such powerful comments, and it's not about the fact that they're loving what you're talking about. It's not that. What I am loving is that they want to talk and discuss and discourse. And I think if you can get time, have it when you finish, go have a look at the comments afterwards. I think it's real powerful. But in the last closing minutes, I'd love for you to send all of our people out there, all the Kiwis out there, a message about your party, about you, about what you want New Zealanders to know as a final thing in this interview.
Oh, you're good, Elliot. You're good, mate. You are so good. I like you. Hey, we should talk. We should talk, Elliot. We should talk. Yeah. Right out there.
Hey.
No pressure.
Hey,
No pressure, brother. Hey, look, I would say to everyone that the party that I'll lead is going to be all about basic human rights, that any legislation that goes through Parliament has to pass the Bill of Rights test. So that would mean that mandates and this health response bill would not have got off the ground. So that's core to us. So the right to express yourself, the right to roam, the right to leave and return to your country, the right to decide what goes into your body. Those are core values that the party that I lead will have at the center of everything we do. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing I want to talk about is that I want to say that we have, we're all Kiwis. So let's be colorblind and say, let's address the issues based on need, not on the color of your skin or what race you are or where you identify. So that's a massive, big thing for me. And people say, oh, they're going to be a racist party. We're actually preaching the opposite, that we're all Kiwis together in this. I think that this government has actually done so much damage and division within our society between groups of people that will take years to repair. So that's one thing. And the third thing I would say is private property rights. That's the core of capitalism and in business. And so protection of private property rights would be another element of our party. So I'm working out on philosophies and basic values and core principles. We will develop our policies around that, but I also like to think that Kiwis out in the regions are the ones that should be making the decisions, not people in Wellington in those tall high-rise buildings, the bureaucrats. The people out, decentralized control out in the regions deciding, because my experience in life is the people that are in the trenches, they're the ones that know what needs doing and know how to fix things. And those people need to be given the resources and the decision-making responsibility. So that's where I stand. So I just say to people, look, the people that have been affected by this COVID mandate dramas that we've had for the last 2 years is a big group and a growing number. And that if those people all come together and be very strategic with their vote, they could bring in a political party that can make sure that the big boys steer the course right, keep the ship sailing in the right direction, and keep Kiwis honest. Because what I want is what's best for my family, my friends, my neighbours, the people I associate with. That's my driver, is what's best for us Kiwis.
Well done.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much. Absolutely wonderful. We're going to have you on the show again. We've got to have you on here. Thank you so much for your words. The comments have been pouring in. And to all of you out there, thank you so much for joining in. This is not the last that you've heard. Absolutely. Matt King's going to get stronger and stronger. Love what he's saying. Personally, for myself, I think it's really awesome. But in the meantime, go out there, love each other, be united. And remember, God bless you and God bless New Zealand. Pāse fort.